Hello everyone, Phoenix Knight here. Welcome to the channel, and welcome to Christmas in Arkham 2024. Hard to believe another year is already almost in the books. In fact, for me at work, the year already is in the books. So, of course, as you may recall if you're a regular on the channel, this time of year brings with it our yearly Christmas tradition. And as you recall, we're not talking about mistletoe and reindeer. No, it's time to take a venture back to Arkham for Christmas in Arkham 2024. I did a full intro for how Christmas in Arkham is going to work. What brings us together tonight is Group 1 of the Fate of the Elder Gods tournament. Fate of the Elder Gods is a game by Greater Than Games with trying to summon the Ancient Ones, which is the entire premise of this tournament, where we're trying to summon our opponent and then turn around and banish them during Christmas in Arkham. Anyway, with Group 1, we've got Nyarlathotep finishing up the group. Then we've got Shub-Niggurath. But leading off, we have last year's opponent in Christmas in Arkham, the King in Yellow himself, Hastur. His special ability, aka Dark Gift, is Dance of the Outer Gods. Starting from the ceremony and proceeding clockwise, you may roll one die for each location on the altar where you have a cultist present. For each Cthulhu or tentacle rolled, place one cultist from your lodge on that location and move one investigator from there to any other location. We'll be doing everything in yellow, since as you can see out here, we've got one of each color, one cultist at each location, and an investigator there as well, along with a supply off camera. So let's go through a little bit of what each location does. We'll talk a little bit more about the control actions which come in when we control a location. So starting from the other worlds, we can sacrifice cultists there to gain progress on our summoning track. And I'll actually move the fate pieces out of the way for a second, because that will be relevant. So each location on the altar has a symbol on it. We can use those symbols to help prepare spells, and that'll make more sense when we get into the game a little bit later. So we've got a wild symbol there, which means we can use that for any astral symbol, plus a red. So anything that takes wild and red, we can prepare there. We also use two fate pieces during the game. We've got the dark fate piece, which starts at the other worlds. The investigators will be controlling the light fate piece, and they will start at the streets of Arkham. So that's the other world is done. Over at the museum, we can pick up one of these. We can pick up one of the artifacts there, or from the top from the artifact deck. So, since we've got two artifacts out here, let's reveal the artifacts that are out here for Hastur to start with. His first artifact is the Silver Key. Exhaust this to move a cultist from any location to any other location where you have one or fewer. And then discard it to move the fate piece to any other location. I've ruled in the past that works with either fate piece. So that's how we're going to handle that. And then the other artifact we have to choose from is the Lamp of Alahazred. Discard to roll 3 dice. For each elder sign, whether lesser or greater, gain an elder sign, then immediately take another turn. That's got a blue symbol there, plus a yellow card to start the game with. The ceremony, which is what relates to each Ancient One's Dark Gift, that's where we go when we want to activate that, and we get a gate card, which we can use to travel anywhere on the altar. In addition, when we're preparing spells, it counts as any symbol, just like the astral symbol at the other worlds. Then at the streets of Arkham, it works a little bit different in the solo game, where normally you'd give 2 investigators as you want and raid any location. So if the investigator's fate piece moves back to the streets of Arkham, raid occurs immediately. And I'll explain more about how a raid works when we get into the game, when we have it happen. And then when we perform the Streets of Arkham location action on our turn, we can return 2 investigators from the lodge back to the supply. And having control of the Streets of Arkham allows us to sacrifice a cultist from the Streets of Arkham to remove an additional investigator from the lodge. Then moving over to the Gathering, actually the Streets of Arkham has got a yellow symbol and another yellow card there as well. Ceremony has a white symbol and a yellow card there. The Gathering, which has a green symbol and a green card with it, says we can gain 3 cultists and move one to any location we want. Then the library has a red symbol and then a yellow card. We draw 3 extra spell cards, which is that giant stack over there, and then we can prepare an extra spell using the same stack of symbols. And I'll explain more about how that works when we get into it. 2 more things to set up. We need to set up our starting hand. So Hastur, first up on a blue, will have Alter Fate, taking a yellow, and a green. Either reroll up to 3 of your dice once or 1 die up to 3 times. Then on a white, Chorus the Innocent, taking blue, green, yellow. Move up to 2 investigators from any one location or lodge to any lodges, which is basically El Hot Garbaggio in the solo game. And on a red, Mind Switch, taking a blue and a green. Swap one of your cultists from any one location with any other cultist at a different location. In the solo game, I've ruled that you can use that to swap with investigators, since they're basically the only other cult in the game, even though they're not technically a cult. And then we've got the monsters that we've got to look at as well. There are ways to summon them in the game, but our first monster is the Goat Spawn with 3 tokens. On your turn, you may discard 1 token to place the Goat Spawn on a location, then roll 3 dice. For each lesser elder sign, move an investigator to another location. For each greater elder sign, move an investigator to any lodge. Then choose a cult with at least 1 investigator at this location. That cult becomes cultist at this location. That cult becomes cursed. For the solo game, it would probably make more sense to... I don't know. I'll have to think about that. But our next monster is Amigo. On your turn, instead of playing an astral symbol, you may discard a token to move the fate piece to another location and place Amigo there instead of a cultist. Amigo are considered cultists, but count as 2 for purposes of control, but they can't be sacrificed. After a token is discarded and Amigo are placed in the location, if an artifact symbol is revealed, place 1 artifact from the top of the artifact deck face down in the current location's astral column. The next cult to ready a spell there takes the artifact. So that's what we're looking at there. I think with that, we are all set to get into this game. So Hastur is our Ancient One, and he will be leading us off from the other worlds. He is going to use a white at the other worlds to move down to the ceremony. He'll place a cultist, and we'll put an investigator there as well. We will roll a die to see if we get temporary control. So what control means, let me back up and explain that a little bit. What control means is we have 3 if we have 3 cultists and the most cultists or investigators at a location, we control the location outright, and we get to take the control action. In this case, since we have 2 cultists there, but there are also 2 investigators, we can roll for temporary control, which will give us a stronger version of the action at the same location. So let's see if Hastur gets temporary control of the ceremony on his first turn. He does. That is a Cthulhu in there. It's probably a bit hard to see, but that is a Cthulhu, so he will get temporary control of the location. Okay, which means he will get a gate card that he can use to move, and then he gets to trigger his Dark Gift. Actually, I need the tower back in shot, as I'm just about to send it flying. Hastur's Dark Gift, as we recall, is starting from the ceremony and proceeding clockwise. You may roll a die for each location on the altar where you have a cultist present. For each tentacle or Cthulhu, place 1 cultist from your lodge on that location and move an investigator from there to any other location. So we'll start from the ceremony. We do get to place a cultist and move an investigator. We'll move over to the streets of Arkham, and then we'll do the same thing with this. Actually, we'll skip the streets of Arkham and go to the Gathering. We do get to place a cultist there, and we'll just dogpile on the streets of Arkham. Moving up to the library. We do get to place a cultist, and we'll just pile up on the streets of Arkham. Moving to the other worlds, we do get to place a cultist, and we'll move the investigator there to the streets of Arkham. So that's going to turn into a happening place. And the museum. I think we're actually going to skip the museum here. But because we have control of the location outright, we will get to sacrifice 2 cultists, and Hastur will move up 1 on the summoning track. So let me back up here to explain how the summoning track works. We start up here on the summon track. We're going to be moving around in a circle with the goal of getting up to 9, which is where the Ancient One is considered summoned. But if we gain Elder Signs, and there are plenty of effects that will give us Elder Signs, we place them backwards. If they ever meet, we take a curse. And if we take 5 curses in the game, we do lose. So that's how that all works out, which means we're down to 2 cultists left on the lodge, so we need to be very careful about that. On a red, we will find Transmogrify, taking a blue and a white. Change any one-rolled die to any face. If the new face is Tentacle or Cthulhu, become cursed. And we weren't preparing anything there anyway. So the way the investigators will move is they'll take a little bit of a different approach. So they'll put a card out at the location where their fate piece currently is. In this case, it was a red. So I put that on the streets of Arkham, which means they'll move to the library and place a cultist on their location. Hey, look at that. Their turn's already over. So now on our turn, I could use this gate to move right away. And I think I'm going to, well, let me look at my 2 reds. Transmogrify and Mind Switch. Right now, those are basically garbage to me, so I think I am going to use 2 red as a wild, so I'll move over to the Gathering, which will make me put a cultist out and an investigator. And then as you can see, I have 3 cultists there, so I control the location outright, which means at the Gathering, I get 3 cultists back from the Abyss, which will stop me from taking Elder Sign penalties. And then I can move any number of investigators from the Gathering to any other location. I'm going to move them up to the other worlds. And then with 2 green, I'm not preparing anything there. No. So I will draw a new card. On a red, I will find Sign of the Brotherhood, taking 2 blue and a green. Choose one other cult and return one of their cultists from the Abyss and place it on their lodge. You return 3 and place them on your lodge. The investigators will discard a blue at the library to move over to the museum and place another cultist out. And I'm curious if you guys are watching who you guys have in this year's tournament, at least in this group. Remember, this group is Hastur, then Shub-Niggurath, and then Nyarlathotep. So that's the group we're looking at there. What do I have? What did I have on this red? Sign of the Brotherhood. And what do I have there for spells I can for symbols? Blue, red, yellow, which is not great. And I do want to save the gate card for when I'm moving up to the other worlds, which might be soon. So I'm going to use this Sign of the Brotherhood at the Gathering to move over to the library, which will let me place a cultist and an investigator. Once more, I control the location outright, so the action I've got there for control is I can sacrifice a cultist from the library to ready a spell at no additional cost. I draw 3 spell cards, and I can ready an additional spell this turn. So explaining a little bit about how the readying an additional spell works, I can ready 1 spell with the stack of astral symbols that's there, then ready another one with the same stack. The stack doesn't discard until I'm done preparing anything. So on a yellow, I will find Alter Fate, taking a green and a red. We had this earlier, but I think I discarded it to move. On a white, another Sign of the Brotherhood. This one taking 2 green and a red, which I could go to the Gathering to prepare, but I don't think I'm going to. And on a blue, we've got a Shadow Walk. At the end of your turn, you may sacrifice a cultist and become cursed to immediately take another turn. Let's see. I think I will go ahead and sacrifice a cultist here. I'll sacrifice a cultist back into the abyss to prepare this shadow walk. Then with red, blue, yellow, I don't think we're doing anything there. So unfortunately, the control action there goes to waste. On a white, I will find Rack, taking 2 blue. Destroy a cultist from any, or an investigator from any location or lodge. The investigators are at the museum. They'll discard a white to move down to the ceremony and place another investigator. Let's see. Am I ready here to go for progress on the summon track? Let's see. I don't think so quite yet. Actually, no, I couldn't have prepared that anyway. Never mind. What do I want to do here? Well, I think here I'm going to discard Sign of the Brotherhood and Rack for 2 whites, so I can move over to the museum. I'll put a cultist out, and they'll get another investigator out. Normally, if there are 3 investigators on a location, when you move to it, you then take the investigators. Like if I were to move down here to the streets of Arkham, number 1, I'd have to be certifiably crazy to do that. But number 2, if I have 3 or more cultists or 3 or more investigators on my lodge, I would get raided at the end of my turn. So definitely not something I want to have happen there. I'll be rolling for temporary control, which I don't get because that's a tentacle symbol. So now I can either take a face-up artifact or the top artifact from the deck. I don't think I like either one of these. So I'm going to go ahead and draw an artifact from the top, so Hastur will find the Amulet of Neferin-Ka. Discard, or exhaust it to change 1 lesser elder sign to a tentacle. Discard to change all of them. That could be handy when we're up at the other worlds. Let's see, with a white, blue, yellow, we're not preparing anything there. On a red, Hastur will find Gate to the Past. 2 blue and a white. At the end of any other cult's turn, you may sacrifice 2 cultists from your lodge to take the current lodge's basic action. That could be useful. The investigators are at the ceremony, though. They will discard a red. They'll discard a red to move up to the library and place an investigator. Okay, what are we doing at the museum? I think here I am going to use my gate card so I can work on getting on the summon track. So I'll move up to the other worlds at this point, which will give me an investigator out and which will give me a cultist and an investigator. I should probably move over to the gathering pretty soon. I've only got 1 cultist left. I actually am lucky on that regard because I can see I'm drawing a green. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cultists there, which means I get to roll 6 dice, 1 per cultist for the other worlds. 4, 6. All right, so I get to roll for progress on the summon track. I advance 1 per tentacle or Cthulhu I roll, and because I have control of the location for every Cthulhu, I get to return a location back to my lodge. Right? Yes. So I'd love to see a couple of Cthulhus here, so I can keep the Elder Sign penalty at bay. So I get, wow, that was just absolute, well, I could toss the Amulet of Neferin-Ka to change all, you know what, no. I'm going to just, That would put me up 4 on the summon track, which I think I'm going to do. I think I am going to do that to change all 3 of those lesser elder signs to tentacles. So that means 4 cultists will get sacrificed. 1 will return to my lodge, and I'll advance 4 on Hastur's summon track, so I'm up to 5 now. And then on a green, I will draw Call of the Wicked Ones, summon a monster and become cursed, taking a white and 2 yellow. Actually, I keep forgetting I gotta look to see if I can prepare anything first. Wild, white, red. No, I couldn't prepare anything anyway. I'm very glad that this green spell is Alhot Garbaggio, though. Before we get there, though, the investigators are discarding a blue to move to the museum and putting out a 4th investigator. And the reason I'm so happy that this spell is that this green is Alhot Garbaggio is I'm going to discard it to beat feet over to the gathering, which will place a cultist and an investigator, bringing the small dice tower back in, and I'll roll for temporary control, which I will not get. So that'll let me gain 3 cultists back from the abyss and move the 1 there up to the gathering. Let's see, green, red. I think that is exactly... You know what? I will use the green and the red there to prepare my Alter Fate that takes those. So now when I've prepared a spell that's paying a cost, everything there gets discarded, even if you didn't need all of it. And then on a green, we will find Dark Pact, taking a red and a white. Become cursed to prevent gaining all elder signs from a single source. The investigators at the museum will discard a white. I'm going to move this dice tower out of the way so I can stretch the astral column out there. White will move down to the ceremony and put out another investigator. Well, I can't stay at the gathering. Right? Yeah, I can't stay at the gathering, so I think with that in mind, which means I got to discard either the Gate to the Past or the Alter Fate. I think I'm going to discard the Gate to the Past, which is on a red, so I can move up to the museum. I will take the 3 cultists, but I won't get rated yet because I only have 5 there. Then I put a cultist and an investigator out. And I do control the location, a white and 2 yellow. Assign each cult, including yours, one of the following. Lose an elder sign, gain 2 investigators from the abyss, gain 2 investigators, become cursed. On a yellow, Broken Seal, 3 yellow. Destroy any 1 elder sign. You may sacrifice the investigator or cultist at the current altar location to destroy 1 more. And on a white, Corruption. Taking a green and a yellow. Either sacrifice 2 cultists from your lodge or become cursed. Then you may advance 1 on the summon track or destroy 2 elder signs from your lodge. Let's see, what all do I have prepared here? Okay. All right, so I've got a red, a yellow, 2 blue, and 2 white. Red, a yellow, 2 blue, and 2 white. Well, I think I'm going to sacrifice... Well, I'm not going to worry about sacrificing a cultist here, because I can just use the red and a white there to prepare Dark Pact. All right. Then on a green, I will find Mind Switch again. Now At the end of the turn, I will go ahead and sacrifice Shadow Walk. So at the end of my turn, I can sacrifice a cultist, which I'll sacrifice from here, and become cursed, which is going to be Hastur's first curse of 5, to immediately take another turn. I think I'm going to use a green at the library to move down to the gathering, which will put a cultist out and an investigator. Temporary control doesn't really matter for anything here because I only have the one cultist there, and I'll be moving him straight to the other worlds anyway, which I don't get temporary control anyway. That'll give me these 3 cultists back, and then that one will move up to the other worlds. Then for a green and a red, I don't think I have anything I can prepare there. No. So I guess I will draw then. On a green, I will find Transmogrify. We had this earlier. The investigators at the ceremony will discard a red to move over to the library and put a cultist out, or put an investigator out. Let's see. The question here now becomes, do we try for game? And I think the answer with 2 blue, do we have any mitigation ready to go? Yes, we have an Alter Fate. Okay. So I think Hastur is going to use 2 blue at the gathering to move up to the other worlds, which will put another cultist out and an investigator. And then since we control the location outright, we get the control action there. So we have 5 cultists there. If 4 of these are some kind of summon, Hastur will be summoned, having taken 1 curse. So let's see what the king in yellow is able to do with this roll. I've also got an Alter Fate ready if I need it. Which I will go ahead and use. So I can reroll up to 3 of my dice once, or 1 of my dice up to 3 times. So that's cast. We'll pull these 3 tentacles out, since I don't want to reroll those. And we'll reroll these 2 dice. And that'll work. So we would end up sacrificing all 5 cultists into the abyss to advance on our summon track. 1, 2, 3, 4. Except 9 is the furthest we need to get, which means Hastur will get summoned, but he did take 1 curse. That could be problematic for tiebreakers. Hastur actually had a great performance to lead off this year's tournament. So summoned. I'm just tabbing over to Excel. Oop, knock it off. Excel. Yes. No Elder Signs, 1 curse. So Hastur with a marvelous performance to lead off this year's Christmas in Arkham tournament. So with that all done, I'm going to put the stream into Be Right Back, and then we'll get set up for the next Ancient One to go through. All right, thank you for your patience, ladies and gentlemen. We are all set for the second ancient one in group 1. The next ancient one up. Whoops, we're actually not set just yet. I've got to deal out our starting spell cards. I did shuffle up the spell deck, so no need to worry about that. Okay, now we're all set to meet the second ancient one of group 2. We have got this time Shub-Niggurath, the Black Goat of the Woods. Her special dark gift is Thousand Young. Discard any monster you control and its corresponding tokens. Draw 3 monster cards from the face-down monster reserve. Summon 1 and place the other cards on the bottom of the monster reserve. This does not result in a curse. You may have seen some of the spells that summon monsters in the game say result in a curse. Shub-Niggurath does the whole her big thing is Black Goat of the Woods, the mother of the brood of the thousand young. She doesn't, so monsters don't give her a curse. And then for her starting spells, on a blue she has The Stars Are Right. We saw this earlier. And these last two are on green. Transmogrify, which we saw for mitigation, and Corruption. And we saw this earlier as well, taking a blue and a white. Our starting artifacts, first up we've got True Magic. Exhaust to discard a spell in your reserve, then draw the top spell from the spell deck and immediately ready it for free. Or the Necronomicon. When you gain this artifact, become cursed. Exhaust it to add a wild for readying a spell, or discard to move the fate piece to another location. And again, I rule that you can use that in the solo game to move either fate piece. Then for the monster reserve, Shub-Niggurath has to start with Deep Ones. Upon summoning, place 1 Deep One on 3 different locations. On your turn, you may remove a token to choose a location occupied by a Deep One and destroy a cultist or an investigator at that location. Deep Ones count as 1 cultist for purposes of control, but can't be sacrificed. And as a special, locations occupied by Deep Ones may not be targeted by Dagon's Dark Gift, but of course, that's not relevant to the solo game. Our other choice for a monster, Hound of Tyndalos. On your turn, you may discard 1 token to place the Hound of Tyndalos on the summon track of any lodge. The cult's summon track cannot advance while being occupied by the Hound of Tyndalos. To remove the Hound of Tyndalos, the cult may either choose to become cursed or visit the ceremony and remove the Hound of Tyndalos instead of activating their other god's dark gift. The Hound of Tyndalos is then returned to this card. The Hound of Tyndalos is removed from play when it returns to this card and there are no more tokens. In the solo game, I think we've ruled that the investigators can't be placed would be too powerful. I'll have to think of something for that. Anyway, we'll set the summon track to 0. And Shub-Niggurath is all set to get started in her playthrough, so let's jump right into it. We are, of course, using the Dark Fate piece once again. I will discard The Stars Are Right on a blue to move over to the museum, placing out an investigator, a cultist, and an investigator. I'm so used to playing in the Arkham Horror Files and playing as the investigators. Let's see if we get temporary control of the location. We, of course, do not. And since I don't like either of these artifacts, especially with Hastur having been able to get summoned with with 1 curse, we could take the Necronomicon for that, but I'm going to take a chance on the top artifact of the deck. So we will find Crown of Carcosa. You may roll 2 dice when rolling for temporary control, but if you roll 2 greater Elder Signs, become cursed and destroy the Crown of Carcosa. And then on a blue and green, we've got nothing we can prepare there. So we'll go ahead and draw a new spell card. On a green, we will find Dark Pact, taking a red and a white. Become cursed to prevent gaining all Elder Signs from a single source. At the Streets of Arkham, the investigators will then discard a red to move up to the library and place an investigator. Then we could use 2 green to move somewhere. Let's go for... Let's use 2 green at the museum to move down to the ceremony, which will put a cultist and an investigator out. And we get to roll 2 dice for temporary control, thanks to the Crown of Carcosa. Which that's 2 lesser Elder Signs, so no control, but we also don't have to discard the Crown of Carcosa. So we get the gate card for movement, and then we get to draw 3 monsters from the monster reserve. And we summon one of them and put the other 2 on the bottom. This doesn't result in a curse. First monster we have to choose from is the Goat Spawn. We saw this earlier. Then the Hunting Horror. Place the Hunting Horror on this card. On your turn, you may discard a token to place this on any lodge. Roll when an investigator or cultist is added to the occupied lodge, roll a die for each. On a Cthulhu or a tentacle, destroy the investigator or cultist, then return the Hunting Horror to this card. If the Hunting Horror returns to this card and there are no more tokens, remove it from play. Or the Migo. We saw this earlier when we had a choice. I think we're going to... I think we're going to take control of the Migo. So we'll get our 3 tokens. Yes. 3 tokens along with the Migo. Here we are. So now we have to be careful that... Now we have to pay attention to the Migo, and potentially if we have astral symbols we don't like. Now I gotta find the Migo in here. Right. Should be just the 1, no. 2, 3, okay, never mind. Alright, so Shub-Niggurath, her dark gift has been activated. On a red and a blue, we're not doing anything there. So now we drop to 3. On a yellow, we will find Witch's Curse, taking a green and a white. Choose a cult, that cult becomes cursed. I think I ruled we can use that to remove curses. I've used that to rule we can remove curses in the past. And on a blue, Mind Switch, we saw this earlier. The investigators at the library will discard a red, but since they're already at the library, they can't move there, so they will move to the other worlds instead. Excuse me. And then what do we want to do here? That's a good question. It would help if to get a look at our hand. I think we're going to discard a blue. Are we? Yes, we are going to discard a blue at the ceremony to move up to the museum, which will give us a cultist and an investigator. We do get to roll for temporary control, since we have 3 cultists, but there are also 3 investigators there. That's a Cthulhu, so we do get temporary control, which means we'll take another artifact from the top. So here we will find Ceremonial Dagger. Discard to return up to the supply up to 5 cult investigators from your lodge, then become cursed. And then we sacrifice 1 or 2 to sweep the... You may discard and replace the artifact deck. Sacrifice up to 3 cultists from the museum. Destroy 1 elder sign from any 1 lodge. I don't have any elder signs to sacrifice right now, so we're just going to sweep the artifact display clear. And then replacing that first up will be Dust of Yuggoth. Elder sign, or discard to discard a spell from your hand to cancel any spell being cast. The spell is discarded without effect. And Silver Key. We saw this during Hastur's game, but he never went for it. Okay. And then with a blue and 3 green, we are not preparing anything there. So that means on a red, we will draw Transmogrify. We saw this earlier. The investigators of the other worlds will discard a yellow to knock my cultist over and move down to the streets of Arkham. They'll put an investigator out and a raid would get triggered, except we've got no investigators on our lodge, so joke's on the investigators. Let's see. From the museum, we'll discard a Transmogrify on a red to move over to the library, which gives us which puts a cultist out and another investigator. So once again, we get to roll 2 dice for temporary control. Which we do get temporary control because there's a cultist or Cthulhu in there. So we'll get to draw 3 spells, and we can sacrifice a cultist to ready a spell at no cost. So on a red, we will find Mind Switch, which we have another one of in hand. And I've got a frog in my throat. On a white, Find Gate, taking a green and a yellow. At the start of your turn, draw a gate card, regardless of whether you have a gate card already. But during the movement phase, we have to use the gate for movement. And on another white, Enthrall. Choose a location that another cult controls. Destroy 2 of their cultists from that location. We can also use that to target investigators. So, let's see. With 2 red and a white, I will use those symbols twice to prepare an Enthrall and a Dark Pact. And then I'll sacrifice a cultist there so I can ready a Find Gate at no cost. And then everything there gets discarded. On a blue, we will draw Command. Taking a wild and a red. Move a monster in a location or lodge to any other location or lodge. The investigators at the streets of Arkham will discard a blue to move up to the museum and put out another cultist, or another investigator. Let's see, what do we want to do here? We already have a gate card. So I think... So on your turn, you may, instead of playing an astral symbol, you may discard a token to move the fate piece to another location and place a Migo there. Which I'll actually use the gate card. I don't want to give up the Migo yet, so I don't want to move to the ceremony. To move to the gathering, which will put a cultist out and an investigator. Rolling for temporary control. Getting it, which will give me 3 cultists back. And I'll move both of these up to the other worlds. With a green and a blue and a full reserve, I'm not preparing anything there. Unless I want to prepare a mind switch, which... yeah, we're actually going to use Enthrall here to destroy 2 cultists at a location that they control. Well, actually, it'll be 2 investigators. And I think we'll target the library with that. So discard pile is going to be over there. We'll take out 2 of the investigators there. And now we've got room to prepare a mind switch with the blue and the green there, which will actually immediately cast that, as we'll swap a cultist from any location. So we'll swap a cultist from the streets of Arkham with an investigator at the other worlds. And then on a green, we'll find another find gate, taking a red and a white. The investigators will discard a blue, but they're already at the museum, so they'll move up to the other worlds and put another investigator out. As for me, excuse me, I think here I'm going to... what am I going to do here? I could use a find gate here. Which, again, I don't want to give up the Migo. So where would I want to go with this? I know I'm drawing a blue this turn, but I don't want to take 4 cultists. I might have to, though. Because command isn't actually that useful, so I think I am going to discard that and risk a raid here to move up to the museum, giving me the 4 cultists, or the 4 investigators, but I'll put out a cultist and an investigator, and I do control the location outright, so I will take the top artifact. Here I will find mistranslated manuscript. Discard to cancel a raid. Choose another cult and initiate a raid on their lodge. Then roll a die. On a result of a Cthulhu or lesser or greater elder sign become cursed. All right, then I'll sweep the reserve clear. And replacing that will be Wizard's Grimoire. Your maximum hand size is 5. I'm going to probably make a beeline for that as fast as I can. And Elder Mask. Exhaust during your turn. Place 1 additional investigator on your location. Discard. You don't take investigators from a location this turn. Let's see. With 2 blue, 3 green, and a red, I'm not preparing anything. So I'll draw on a blue. I will find Broken Seal, taking 3 blue. Destroy any 1 elder sign. You may sacrifice the cultist at the current altar location to destroy 1 more. The investigators are discarding a yellow at the streets of Arkham, or at the other worlds to move to the streets of Arkham. They'll place an investigator, and I will immediately get raided. Which, for purposes of advancing in the tournament, this is very bad for Shub-Niggurath, since elder signs are the first tiebreaker, and Hastur didn't take any. So let's see what happens on this roll. Wow. 4 elder signs, but at least 3 investigators leave the lodge. That could have been a whole lot worse, and I don't think Shub-Niggurath, at this rate, I don't think Shub-Niggurath is getting out of the play-in groups this year. So that's 3 elder signs and a big problem for the Black Go to the Woods. Okay. Let's see. With that in mind, I think we're going to discard a... None of these are that great, to be honest. But I think we will have to... I think we are going to have to use Find Gate here to draw a gate card that we have to use for movement. And I think we're going to go up to the other worlds, just to try to make some progress here. We are rolling 5 dice for a summon, though. Well, to make progress on the summoning track. Right, here's the cup. So let's see if Shub-Niggurath can make any kind of progress. I forgot to mention that we do have control of the location, which turns out it's not going to be relevant. So we'll sacrifice 3 to the Abyss, and Shub-Niggurath will advance 1, 2, 3 on our summon track. With a wild, 2 yellow, blue, and red, are we preparing anything there? We are, actually. We are going to go ahead and prepare a Find Gate. That takes a red and a white. We'll use the wild as our white. So everything there is gone. And then on a red, we will draw another Broken Seal. All right, the investigators at the Streets of Arkham are discarding a yellow, but since they're already at the Streets of Arkham, they would try to move to the other worlds, except they can't move there since we're already there, which means they move right back to the Streets of Arkham. So Shub-Niggurath takes her first curse, and then we get raided with 1 die. They also put an investigator out. This is not good to be the Black Goat of the Woods. Fortunately, the investigator just F's off, and we don't take any Elder Signs, because Shub-Niggurath right now can't afford more Elder Signs. Let's see, what does the Black Goat of the Woods want to do at this point? Actually, with this Broken Seal not being that great, I think she will discard that to move over to the museum. First up, we'll put the cultist out and the investigator. We do have control of the location outright, so she'll take the wizard's grimoire, and then replacing that will be an enchanted cane. Exhaust to reroll 1 of your dice. And then with the control action, we're going to leave the display as is, and then I can sacrifice 3 cultists from the museum. So I'll sacrifice 3 there to get rid of all 3 of Shub-Niggurath's Elder Signs. So that's actually very welcome for the Black Goat of the Woods. Let's see, with a blue, a wild, 2 blue, wild, red, and 3 green. I think we'll go ahead and prepare a Witch's Curse. And then all of this gets discarded. And then since we have the Wizard's Grimoire, which makes our minimum hand size 5, that's what we draw to. So Shub-Niggurath will draw 4 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, on a white, an Ancient Stirring, taking 3 white. Advance 1 on the summon track. You may sacrifice 1 of your cultists at the current altar location to advance 1 more. On a red, Gate to the Past. At the end of any other cult's turn, you may sacrifice 2 cultists from your lodge to take the current location's basic action. Enthrall, taking 2 yellow. Choose a location that another cult controls. Destroy 2 of their cultists from that location. And Witch's Curse, which we have Another one ready to go, which I think I'll go ahead and cast the one I've got now to get rid of this curse. Even though the investigators are discarding a blue to try to move to the museum, we're already there. They'll move to the other worlds, which will give us the curse right back. And the investigator goes at the other worlds. So we're right back to one curse. Okay. So from the museum, I will discard a red to move over to the museum, which will put a cultist out and an investigator. I roll 2 dice for temporary control, which I would love to get here. Which I do get with the Cthulhu symbol, so very nicely done. I'll draw 3 spells, and I can ready an additional spell. Plus, since I have temporary control, I can ready a spell for free. First up on a red, another Ancient Stirring. Next up, find Artifact, taking a blue and a yellow. Just draw an artifact from the artifact deck. And Command, which is basically El-Hat Garbaggio. All right, so I think for the... Let's see, with 2 red... With a red and anything, I think we will go ahead and prepare. We'll prepare and immediately cast Witch's Curse to get rid of the curse here. Troy Sawyer tuned in late again. All good, Troy. Usually with these broadcasts, unless I'm absolutely sure when I'm going to be going live, I don't generally schedule them for a time. So we're actually into the second ancient one of the first group of the Fate of the Elder Gods tournament. Then also with the same symbols, I'm going to... Actually, am I going to prepare that? No. I think instead I'm going to sacrifice a cultist to cast an Ancient Stirring. The one I'll use will take a... Is there anywhere I can get 3 white? Right now, no. So I'll use the 3 white one to advance 1 on my summon track, and I'll sacrifice 1 from the library to advance 1 more. And then everything's gone there. And then drawing a spell card, I will find Call of the Wicked Ones on a green. Good thing that thing is El-Hat Garbaggio. The investigators will discard a white at the other worlds to move down to the ceremony, putting a cultist out. Let's see, I think I've got 2 pretty bad, I've got 2 pretty bad green spells. So I'll summon the Call of the Wicked Ones on a green to move down to the Gathering, taking the 3 cultists. I am risking a raid, putting a cultist out and an investigator. Temporary control. I believe that's a may roll for... No, okay, it is optional to roll for temporary control. I'm not going to roll for temporary control because it doesn't do anything for me. I'll gain the 3 cultists back to the Abyss, and then move this one back to the other worlds. With a green and a blue, I'm pretty sure I'm not preparing anything there. No. Let's see, what else do I have ready to go? I've got to find Gate and a Dark Pact. Okay. On a green, I will find a Mind Switch, taking a red and a blue. That could be very useful if I can get somewhere that I can prep it without having to take a lot of investigators. Speaking of which, the investigators will discard a blue to move up to the museum, preferably without me throwing fate pieces all over the place. And then they'll put an investigator out. I've already got 3 investigators, so I want to be very careful about how many I take, because if I take too many, I'm potentially going to end up getting raided, which could be very problematic here. question is, am I going to have to risk it? And I think the answer here is, let's see, if 4 would just give Shub-Niggurath a perfect summon here would just give Shub-Niggurath the advantage going into tiebreak. It would just give her the tiebreaker over Hastur for a number of curses taken if I'm willing to take a risk on it. And I think she is going to risk it. So, with that in mind, I'm going to use Find Gate to draw a gate card that I have to use for movement this turn. Which I will use that to go up to the other worlds. It's going to give me a huge raid potentially, but I've got ways I can deal with that. That'll put a cultist out and an investigator. Unfortunately, what I don't have here is mitigation, but like I said, I've got ways to stop the giant raid coming up. Hopefully, it just doesn't matter though, because I've got 4 cultists there, which means I'm rolling 4 dice for the summon. If all these have to be summons though for Shub-Niggurath to end up with the advantage in this in this first group. Let's see what happens here. And unfortunately, I don't have any kind of mitigation. I've got mitigation for the Elder Signs coming, but nothing for this roll. Which Shub-Niggurath is going to be facing a very ugly situation on that front. So I will sacrifice 2 cultists, one of which comes back to the lodge to advance 2 on the track. Actually, I could discard the ceremonial dagger, which I think I will do, to return to the supply up to 5 cultists from my lodge, then become cursed. So that will return 5 of the investigators back, right? Yes. So 5 investigators back, which actually just stops the raid. Actually, do I want to stop it with that, or... Actually, yeah, let's stop it that way, because I know there are other witches' curses in the game. And at least this way, we've got the possibility of a dice roll tiebreaker, should Shub-Niggurath get summoned without taking any more curses. If I can ever make these stupid investigators, there we go. Let's try to make them stand up. So Shub-Niggurath will take another curse. And then with white, blue, wild, I think we are going to prepare and immediately cast Mind Switch to swap an investigator, a cultist from my location with any other cultist at a location. But I'm ruling I can use that with cultists, or with investigators. So we'll swap the ceremony with the other worlds. So now we're going to have another chance at it potentially. All of that is gone, by the way. On a yellow, we will find Cubes of Power, taking a red and a white. When you're rolling dice, you may add up to 2 additional. You may add 2 additional dice to the roll. The investigators at the museum will discard a red to move over to the museum and put an investigator out. Let's see. So we've got blue, wild, or blue, green, anything over at the gathering. And I think the gathering is really our only safe spot right now. So I think we will... Yes, we will go with that. So I'll discard a green to move down to the gathering, putting out a cultist and an investigator. And I'll skip rolling for temporary control because that doesn't do anything for me. I'll gain 3 back from the abyss and move the 1 up to the gathering. Then with green, blue, whatever, I've got nothing I can prepare. On a blue, I will find a rack, taking 2 yellow. The only location I could prepare that is at the streets of Arkham. But I'm not going there unless I'm ready to take on a 5 cultist raid, or take on 5 cultists and a 7 dice raid. The investigators will discard a red at the library, trying to move there, but they are already there, so they're going to move to the other worlds. This could be problematic. What to do? This is bad. So I'm drawing a yellow, which hopefully means I won't just get raided here. Unfortunately, anywhere I go, I am going to be getting raided. So I think... Let's see, what do I want to do here? I think I'm going to have to risk it, unfortunately, to try to get rid of some of these cultists. So I'll discard a... Let's remove 2 if I have temporary control. Return 2 from your lodge back. So that'll cut down the size of the raid, but it's still going to be a considerable raid if I go ahead with that. Or I could just cancel the raid outright. I want to be able to move to the museum in case I take some Elder Signs from that raid. Unfortunately, what I don't have is a way to move the Investigator's Fate piece. So here, I think I will discard a yellow. This is very risky, but I will have to move to the streets of Arkham, taking these 5 investigators, putting out a cultist and an investigator, rolling for temporary control. Two lesser Elder Signs, so no control there. What do we want to do here? So now we've got an option. So we can remove 2 of these investigators from the lodge, because that's what the location does. We don't get control, so we don't have the temporary control action available to us. On a 2 yellow, I will prepare and immediately cast Enthrall using 2 yellow. Choose a location that... Actually, no. I think the way we do that is we prepare and immediately cast Rack instead. Destroy an investigator from any location or lodge. So I'll take out an investigator from our lodge and stop the raid. All of this is discarded. On a yellow, I will draw Dark Pact, taking a blue and a yellow. We have this. We saw this earlier. The investigators will then discard a white at the other worlds to move down to the ceremony, putting out a cultist or an investigator. Then I think we've got to gamble and go for it. So with that in mind, I will discard a... Actually, I'll discard my 2 yellow. I'll discard my 2 red, actually, because I want to be able to prepare cubes of power if this goes belly up. So we'll discard 2 red to move up to the other worlds, putting out a cultist and an investigator. We have control of the location, so any Cthulhu's rolled will give us will let us return them to the lodge. But if we roll 2 on the summon track, Shub-Niggurath will get summoned and will be in a good spot with Hastur on tiebreakers. So let's see what happens on this roll. That is 3 tentacles. So Shub-Niggurath will sacrifice 3 cultists, advance 2 on the summon track, and Shub-Niggurath has also been summoned. So let me update my scores here. So yes. No Elder Signs, 1 curse. We have a total tie with Hastur right now in terms of which Ancient One could be advancing. But we've got 1 more Ancient One to go. So once again, I'll put the stream into be right back. But I will be around to interact with chat. So feel free to chat. Feel free to chat to me and or with everybody else in chat. But I do need to reset the board. So I'm curious, Troy. I don't know if you were around for the intro to Christmas in Arkham on Sunday night, but of the 9 ancient ones that are eligible for this tournament, is there one in particular that you're interested in seeing me match up against for Christmas in Arkham this year? Just a little curiosity thing while I reset the board for the last ancient one of Group 1. Was late into that one too. It happens. It happens to all of us. Don't know enough about this game to say I'm just getting into games again. So let me give you the short version of what we're doing for Christmas in Arkham this year. So what we're doing for Christmas in Arkham is we're playing a mini campaign of the 3 biggest games in the Arkham Horror files: Eldritch Horror, Arkham Horror 2nd Edition, and then Elder Sign. You can watch the video of the intro of the campaign for the full rules. But what I'm doing here is it turns out I'm using a play-in game. I'm using Fate of the Elder Gods to determine my opponent for Christmas in Arkham. It turns out that there are 9 ancient ones, if I count promo ancient ones, that cross between all 4 games. This one and the 3 games in Christmas in Arkham proper. What I've done is I've split those ancient ones into 3 groups of 3. We're doing solo play-in game. We're doing solo playthroughs for all of those ancient ones. Then whichever one does the best, depending on summons and tiebreakers, will go to a final winners group. The winner under the same parameters of that winners group will then be my opponent for Christmas in Arkham. Hopefully that all makes sense. The 9 ancient ones who cross all 3 games, though, are the 3 in tonight's group: Hastur, Shub-Niggurath, and Nyarlathotep. In addition, we've also got Azathoth, Atlach-Naka, Ithaca, Yig, Cthulhu, and Yog-Sothoth as ancient ones who cross all 4 games. So those are the ancient ones that we have as eligible as opponents for Christmas in Arkham. Again, that's a rambly, very short 10,000-foot view explanation of how Christmas in Arkham works this year, or actually how it's worked every year since 2022. The first time I ran the campaign in 2021 was as an executive pick. And we will have, of course, we will have tournament action all week. We'll have Group 2 tomorrow. I don't know exactly when tomorrow. Then Thanksgiving will feature Group 3, and then Black Friday we'll have the winners group to determine who the opponent for Christmas in Arkham will be. And we are all set with our last ancient one of Group 1. This one is where I've had to modify a special ability. So the last ability is the Crawling Chaos, Nyarlathotep. We've got Masks. Destroy one cultist from each other cult's lodge. Then place an investigator on each other cult's lodge. In the solo game, that ability is what I like to call El Hot Garbaggio. So I've given him a new special ability called Masks. Well, I've given him a new spin on Masks. So what I'll do is I'll roll a die. On a Cthulhu, we get the full effect of the ability. A tentacle gives a D3, and nothing from either Elder Sign. So after we roll the green die, we'll roll a regular D6. On whatever the result is, we'll destroy one investigator per and replace with a cultist from the lodge. So that's what the regular die is for. So now we'll tab back in. Go back and watch it from the beginning. You like Cthulhu because you've seen me play it. Well, I'm glad for the kind words on that. Anyway, we'll set the summon track there. Then we'll look at our starting artifacts. First up from the library, we have Chamber's Journal. Exhaust, choose any location to roll a die. On a Cthulhu or a tentacle, add an investigator from your lodge to that location. On a Greater Elder Sign, add an investigator from that location to your lodge. And mistranslated manuscript, which we had earlier for Shub-Niggurath, trying to stop a potential raid. Then we'll look at the monster reserve for Nyarlathotep. I've got my buddy Cthulhu off shot over here, watching over my buddy Cthulhu being my crocheted Cthulhu, who's been a constant companion. I've got a red one in my car as well. First up on the monster reserve, we have the Migo, which we saw earlier with Shub-Niggurath, but she didn't use them. And Hunting Horror. We saw this earlier, but we didn't use it either. All right, we need to move the Investigator's Fate piece back to the streets of Arkham. I'll take a quick drink. Much better. Throat was getting a little bit dry there. Okay. All right, so now let's look at Nyarlathotep's starting hand. On a green, we will find Alter Fate, taking a yellow and a red, which we can't prepare as of now. And on to red, actually both of these are going to be on red. First up, we'll have a Gate to the Past, taking 2 blue and a white. At the end of any other cult's turn, you may sacrifice 2 cultists from your lodge to take the current location's basic action. And Alhazred's Vengeance. Blue, yellow, white. Reveal when another cult takes an action that places at least 1 cultist on your lodge. That cult becomes cursed. Which in the solo game is what I like to call El Hot Garbaggio. So, I think to me, that looks like pretty good discard fodder. So we'll discard that at the other worlds to move over to the library, placing out a cultist and an investigator. We'll roll a die for temporary control, which we will not get because of a Greater Elder Sign. It's a bit hard to see in there, but that is a Greater Elder Sign. So we get to draw 3 spells and ready an additional one. Normally we ready 1 at the end of the turn. So first up on a red, we will find Rack, taking 2 green. Destroy an investigator from any 1 location or lodge. Then on a yellow, Call of the Wicked Ones, taking a red and 2 blue. That is probably garbage as well. And on a blue, Call of the Wicked Ones, also garbage. And I don't think anything there. I don't think I can even prepare anything with 2 red. I cannot. So we will draw a card. On a yellow, we will find Enlighten the Faithful, taking red, white, blue. At the end of your turn, you may move up to 3 of your cultists from any 1 location to any other location. That could be useful. The investigator is starting at the streets of Arkham. Will discard a white, to move over to the ceremony and put out a cultist. Then what are we doing? I think we're going to... If I could get up to the other worlds, I could prepare this and enlighten the faithful, but that's probably a waste right now. So let's discard a blue at the library to move over to the museum, which will put out a cultist and another investigator. We'll roll for temporary control. Greater Elder Sign will not give us temporary control. So I'll take it the top artifact. Nyarlathotep will find the Elder Mask. Okay. And then we can't do anything there. With a blue and a white, nope, we can't prepare anything. So on a green, we will find... The stars are right, taking red and 2 blue. Assign each cult, including yours, one of the following. Lose an Elder Sign, gain 2 cultists from the Abyss, gain 2 investigators, become cursed. The investigators at the ceremony will discard a yellow to move to the streets of Arkham, which would trigger a raid, except once again, joke's on them, because we don't have any investigators on our lodge. I'm going to use a green at the... museum to move over to the gathering, which will put a cultist and an investigator out. Rolling for temporary control. Not getting it, which will give me 3 more cultists back from the Abyss, and then we'll move 1 up to the other worlds. Then with green and yellow, not preparing anything. On a white, we will draw. Dark Pact taking green and a yellow. That's interesting-ish. The investigators at the streets of Arkham will discard a red to move up to the library and put another cultist or another investigator out. Do we want to move over and trigger our Dark Gift? I think the answer to that is yes. So we're going to use the Dark Pact there to move over to the ceremony, which will put a cultist out and an investigator. Rolling for temporary control, which we do not get once again. So we get a gate card and we get to trigger our Dark Gift, which remember, we've modified because of the solo game. I'm just going to refresh my memory. Oh, yes. So we roll a green die. On a Cthulhu, we get the full effect. On the Tentacle, we get a D3. We get nothing on the Elder Sign. That's a Tentacle, so we get a D3 on the regular die. So we get to destroy 1 investigator and replace it with a cultist. Well, I think we're going to take out the investigator at the other world and replace it with a cultist. Let's see, then white, green, yellow. White, green, yellow. Nope, we're not able to prepare anything there. So on a blue, Nyarlathotep will find. Let me tab back in. So on a blue, Nyarlathotep will find Enthrall, taking 2 white. Choose a location that another cult controls. Destroy 2 of their cultists or their investigators from that location. Normally it's cultist, but since this is the solo game, we're using investigators. Speaking of the investigators, they're discarding a white to try to move to the ceremony, but we're there already, so they'll move up to the other worlds, putting out an investigator and giving Nyarlathotep his first curse, which is very bad in terms of tiebreakers. So, I think with that, we can now get back to the library and prepare Enlighten the Faithful. So I think we are going to do that. I think we will discard a rack at the ceremony to go over to the library. We will take the 3 cultists, but that's a risk I'm willing to take here. We have control of the location outright, so we can prepare an additional... Well, we'll be able to prepare an additional spell regardless, but we can sacrifice a cultist to ready a third spell for free. So we get 3 cards. 1, 2, 3. On a yellow, we will find Coerce the Innocent, taking red, green, white, moving up to 2 investigators from any one location or lodge to any lodges. On a green, Power Surge. Until the end of your turn, you control your current location. And on a yellow, Cubes of Power. When you're rolling dice, you may add 2 additional dice to this roll. Now, one thing I want to double check is when I'm preparing spells, do 2 symbols of the same color count for that? And I think the answer is no. Okay, so yeah. 2 symbols of the same type cannot be used as a wild cost to pay for the spells. Okay. So that's good to know. Let's see, with 2 red, a white, and a blue. 2 red, white, blue. I think I will go ahead and prepare Enlighten the Faithful for cost. Then I'll prepare Cubes of Power for cost. And then I will sacrifice a cultist there to prepare Power Surge. Let's see, at the end of your turn, yeah, okay. Right. That would be the end of the turn. Okay. Now that we're done there, I think we will go ahead and call that a turn. We will draw on a green, Sign of the Brotherhood, taking 2 yellow and a white. Choose one of their cults to return one of their cultists from the abyss and place it in their lodge. You return 3 and do the same. So at the end of the turn, I am going to cast Enlighten the Faithful. At the end of my turn, I can move up to... Actually, so that should all be discarded along with this, which means I can move up to 3 cultists from any location to any other location, which I'll move the 2 from the museum up to the other world, because of course I will. I will discard my hand of spell. I'll drop my hand of spells. But I got all that picked up now. The investigators will then try to discard a red at the other worlds to try to move to the other worlds, except we're there already. So what happens when they have to move somewhere different? I think so. I'm just going to double check that. If place the investigator at the new location, if it matches the location it was already in, it instead moves to the other worlds. What if it was already... Okay, so it looks like it just moves back to the other worlds, which also gives Nyarlathotep his second curse, which is very bad for him in terms of the tiebreakers for this tournament. Let's see. What did I do with my hand? I had it and I put it down. Where did I put it down is the question. Oh, on top of my dice cup. Silly me. Let's see. So I will use Call of the Wicked Ones at the library to move down to the streets of Arkham. Putting a cultist out and an investigator. Then we'll roll for temporary control, which I will not get because that is a lesser elder sign. But the basic location action is even plenty to return 2 of these cultists back. Return 2 of these cultists from the lodge back to the supply. Let's see, with a yellow, 2 white, and a red. I think we'll go ahead and prepare an enthrall, which we could use later. All right, so those are all gone. On a green, we will find another Coerce the Innocent, this one taking white, yellow, red. All right, the investigators at the other worlds will discard a blue to move over to the museum and place another cultist. We will then use our gate at the streets of Arkham to move up to the other worlds, which will put a cultist out and an investigator. Since we control the location outright, we get the we get the control effect. So for every Cthulhu we roll on our summon roll here, we'll get to return that cultist back to the lodge. So we've got 6 dice. I'm not going to add cubes of power to this just yet. Well, we get 2 cultists back to the lodge, and Nyarlathotep moves up 2 on the summon track. Let's see, we've got a wild, 2 blue, and 2 red. I think... Well, let's see if we can cast anything that might help us out. So Power Surge is not something I need. Cubes of Power, no. Enthrall, yes, we could use this. So I think here we'll go ahead and destroy 2 cultists at the ceremony. Or 2 investigators. Okay, and then with the spell slot free, I will prepare Gate to the Past. So all of that's gone. And then on a red, I will draw Mind Switch, taking a blue and a green. So the way I use this in the solo game, swap one of your cultists from one location with an investigator at a different location. The investigators will then discard a blue at the museum, trying to move to the museum, except they would be trying to move to the other worlds instead, but I'm there already, so instead they end up at the streets of Arkham, which will give us our 3rd curse, and we get raided, as if Nyarlathotep's problems for getting out of the play-in groups this year wasn't bad enough. That's a tentacle, so the cultist just leaves. Okay, that's not completely nothing, it's only mostly nothing. I think we're going to use 2 greens at the other worlds to move down to the ceremony, which will put a cultist out and an investigator. We get a gate card, and we get to trigger his dark gift. So let's see what we get on this roll. We get a Cthulhu, and wow, that was needed. We get a Cthulhu, and we get to destroy 6 cultists and replace them, or 6 investigators, and replace them with our cultists. Except we only have 3 left in our lodge, so we're actually going to also be taking an Elder Sign penalty. I think we're only going to swap 2 of them, though. So we'll do that at the other worlds. And then we'll sacrifice 2 to the Abyss to advance 1 more on the summon track, so Nyarlathotep is at 3. Since that is the action with control of the location. Then with... Damn it, I just set my... Oh, it's over here. I was going to say, I just about set my hand down again. Oh, I wasn't paying attention to that. I was going to do that at the end of the investigator's next turn, but I totally forgot about that. So, white, green, yellow, red. Not much there I want to use anyway. So, no, we'll pass on that. Then on a white, Nyarlathotep will find, or on a green, or blue, I should say, the stars are right. We saw this earlier. The investigators will discard a yellow at the streets of Arkham, except they're already there, so they'll move up to the other worlds. They're trying to keep us... He's trying to keep us from getting up there, but I don't think Nyarlathotep's getting out of the winners group, or getting into the winners group this year. I think here we're going to discard a... Yeah, we'll discard a blue... Yes, we will discard a blue to move up to the museum. We'll take the cultists. Actually, hold on. Back up. We were actually at the ceremony. Now that I'm looking at it, I'm wondering if... I'm thinking going over to the gathering is probably a much better plan, so I think we're going to do that instead. We'll discard a green at the ceremony to move over to the gathering, placing our last cultist and an investigator. Mainly because I want to make sure I can get some cultists back so I don't take an Elder Sign penalty. That's a tentacle, so I don't get control, temporary control. 3 back from the Abyss, 1 up to the other worlds, and then green, yellow, white. Nothing I can prepare there. On a green, I will find Dark Pact, taking a red and a white. Become cursed and to prevent gaining all Elder Signs from a single source. The investigators will discard a blue at the other worlds to move over to the museum. And then Nyarlathotep will discard his gate to move up to the gathering, which will put that out, and an investigator. And here I'm going to remember, I'm going to use cubes of power. So we've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 dice. We need to get at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 summons. Actually, this is all 10 of the dice I've got in this for this game. Cup is right here. We'll bring the tower in. So we need 6 of these to be summons for Nyarlathotep to at least get summoned and salvage a disastrous run in Christmas in Arkham 2024. Okay, that looks like it's plenty of summons. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Which means we would so to do this by the book, we would sacrifice 7 cultists. 3 because of 3 Cthulhus would come back to the lodge. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Nyarlathotep does get summoned, but he had 3 curses, whereas Shub-Niggurath and Hastur both took 1. So yes, no Elder Signs, 3 curses. Which means Nyarlathotep is eliminated, and we're left with a small problem. Because the tiebreakers went fewest Elder Signs, then fewest curses, except for the fact that Hastur and Shub-Niggurath both ended up taking only 1 curse. So the way we're going to get out of that problem is we're going to have to roll dice for it. So I'm going to grab another die here. Bear with me a second while I get over to my mess of dice. All right. So I'm going to set up, how do I want to do this? Let's put these over. Evening, Jester. You're just in time to see me break a tie in the winners group, in the first play-in group for Christmas in Arkham. Because we ended up getting Nyarlathotep getting summoned, but he took 3 curses to both Hastur and Shub-Niggurath, taking 1. So here's how we're going to do this. We're going to make this very simple. Let's see. How many do I think I need? 3, 3. Let's grab 7 of these yellow cubes out. So we're going to do a dice roll. And of course I didn't bring a pen in here with me. Do I have something in here I can write with? Yes, I do. All right, so sorry, I'm just making a quick note off camera. So we're going to roll dice for this. We're going to roll white for Hastur, blue for Shub-Niggurath. Whichever one's higher will win the roll. First to 4 is going to advance out of this group to the winners group. That's what the yellow cubes I've got right here are for. I've got Hastur just off shot. All right, that's a win for Shub-Niggurath. So that's 1. Hastur, so we're tied at 1. Hastur, Shub-Niggurath, so we're even at 2. Even. This is getting tense. Even again, wow. There we go, Hastur. So Shub-Niggurath's got to pull out 2 wins on the rolls, or Hastur is going to the winners group for the 2nd year in a row. Shub-Niggurath gets it. This one is for all the marbles, folks. If you're cheering for an ancient one, now's the time to show your support. And that will be a victory in the first play-in group for Shub-Niggurath, the winner of the 2022 tournament for Christmas in Arkham. So I'll just make a note in my big spreadsheet. Actually, let's do this. So Shub-Niggurath actually does advance out of this first play-in group into the winners group. So that will do it for Group 1 of the Fate of the Elder Gods tournament in Christmas in Arkham. Tomorrow, we're going to have Group 2. For tomorrow, for sure, we're going to have Group 2 of the play-in groups. Group 2 tomorrow will consist of Azathoth, who was our opponent in the Summer of Lovecraft earlier this year, Atlach-Naka, who we have not faced yet in either campaign, and Ithaca, who was our opponent in Christmas in Arkham 2021. We'll have another game tomorrow as well, but I haven't decided what that's going to be yet or when each of those games is going to take place. We are still going to be quite busy on the channel. I'm not going to really talk about the games now that we're in the middle of the advent of the Phoenix unofficially, because there's going to be so much going on the channel over the next month or so. But I will talk about Mystical Munchies on Saturday, being our last recipe out of the unofficial Disney Parks cookbook, as we're making the drink Jungle Juleps. Thank you for watching the video. Please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to turn on notifications so you get my content. Be well, stay safe, take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and I'll be back with more videos in the future. Until then, take care, everyone.